afternoon. I'm Dr. Nikita Harris, professor in the College of Communication and Information Sciences. And on behalf of the Black Faculty and Staff Association, for our Juneteenth observance, I have here with me who is an educator, a longtime resident of Fort Worth, Texas. She's also a community and civic activist. And I refer to her as one of the mothers of the Juneteenth movement, Miss Opal Lee.
Well, I try to let young people know I'm just a little old lady in tennis shoes getting in everybody else's business.
Okay, getting in everybody. I love it. I love it. It is such an honor to be here with you. When I shared with the association that I was thinking about interviewing you, everyone got really excited, and the president said, "Do you really think you can interview her?" And he researched you. He says, "Man, there are people all over the world interviewing her." But you moved here from East Texas, from Marshall.
Marshall, Texas. I think I might have been 9 years old when my mother brought me and two brothers to Fort Worth. If we came on a Saturday, my mom was working in somebody's kitchen on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And we were with friends on the west side of Fort Worth, Summit Avenue, mm-hmm. Ballinger Street. And so I attended Little Cooper Street School that had been built on a city dump, but I could walk to school. And I was there for about 6 weeks before my family found a place on the south side where we moved. I don't know, my childhood was uneventful, except my parents bought a house at Annie and New York Street. Mm-hmm. And would you believe on the 19th day of June, the paper says some 500 people gathered. They didn't want us in the neighborhood. My father came from work with a gun, and the police said that if he busted a cap, they'd let the mob have us. The paper said the police couldn't control the mob. Our parents sent us to friends several blocks away, and they left under cover of darkness, but those people tore that place apart, burned furniture. Mm-hmm. Now, I've done interviews and people have asked me if that's what given me the insight for Juneteenth. I'm not sure about it, except that Juneteenth is something I'm passionate about. And when I became associated with the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society, we ended up doing Juneteenth festivals. And we did one at Sycamore Park, tiny little park.
Yes.
30,000 people in a 3-day period, 10,000 people a day. And I've tried to duplicate that and have never made it since. But it was a festival to be remembered. The Historical Society took exhibits, but I'm not so sure very many people paid attention to it. And when the park was to close, perhaps at 10 o'clock, and they just pulled the plug. And do you know, I went back and plugged it back up.
Really? You said, this celebration is not over.
No.
I am a resident of Fort Worth, and as a child, I grew up celebrating. My grandparents took a lot of pride in preparing a barbecue cookout for the family, and I remember my older cousins and uncles and aunts going to Sycamore Park for different things. And so when I went to college, I love to tell everybody this story. And I went to college in Atlanta, Georgia, at Clark Atlanta University in '88. And I was so shocked and offended when people did not know. They said, Juneteenth, what is that? And it's so interesting because growing up as a young girl and always celebrating it with my family, at that time, I thought the whole world celebrated Juneteenth. Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get them to do now.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get them to understand that Juneteenth isn't a Texas thing.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some 47, if not 48 states that are celebrating and have Juneteenth on their books as a holiday.
Yes.
So we keep walking and we keep talking because we're going to be sure it becomes a holiday.
Awesome, awesome.
We took 1,500,000 signatures to Congress this past September, and we propose taking that many more before Juneteenth this year. I'd say to those young people who are going to be teaching the students and whatnot, that Juneteenth is as important as Dr. King's Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's as important as Christmas. They need to know their heritage. And if they don't know it, then we're doomed to make those same mistakes again. And that's what seems to be happening in this day and time because they haven't been taught.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fact that the enslaved in Texas got the message 2.5 years after the emancipation is no reason to believe that it's just a Texas thing, because none of us are free until we are all free. And I do mean all people. And we think of the disparities that exist now that we could be addressing. The healthcare system.
Yes.
We need to have books in our schools that tell the children the truth. Climate change, joblessness, homelessness, people not being paid the same thing for the same job. All these things need to be addressed and addressed now. So the young people are the ones with the vim, vigor, and vitality to get these things done. I don't mean just black youngsters, I mean youngsters, period, can see that these things, they can talk to their legislators and see that the things that we need done get done.
Okay. Is that what motivated you to write this beautiful children's book? Can you tell me a little bit about how that happened?
Let me tell you what. I think that the very young have to be taught because people have been taught to hate. They can be taught to love. And so I thought if we started with the children and let them know what actually happened, and it started out with the children asking me to read a book to them. And
I love it.
I thought that I would, and I told them about people who picked cotton. I picked cotton, and I didn't find it something I wanted to do. And so I began to tell them about how the enslaved were brought from their home. I was telling them the difference in the slavery that they've been told in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That these people...
It is an awesome book. And I was looking at it, and you talked about the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
You also talk about some of those cultural things in the African American Black community, such as watch night service. And you want to talk a little bit about that and give it some history?
Right now, our churches still do watch night services. They were watching and waiting for freedom. That's what a watch night service is about. And we're still waiting for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We still got so much that is not kosher, I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. And we've got to address those things. And I think the little book that tells about Abraham Lincoln, and I tell the kids that he was like President Obama.
Yes, I
tell them that. And then this, I think, is a watch night service. And then
there's so many interesting historical things that you point out in that book, which is great.
About how far it was and how big Texas was and how long it took them to get the information to the people. And then they nailed that General Order Number 3 that said that all the enslaved were free. They nailed that to the door of Reedy Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church. I think this Garden Granger, Garden Granger brought some 6,000 or 7,000 black troops. You know, they hadn't been allowed to fight, but he brought them to Galveston. And when people heard that they were free, they began celebrating, and we've been celebrating ever since.
What motivated you in so many ways, just not in terms of the Juneteenth holiday? When I came here, you were talking about a young woman, a young teen, and finding her. Where did that come from?
Well, you'd have to go back as far as my grandparents. My mom was one of 19 brothers or sisters, 3 sets of twins. Grandfather was short. They say on a stallion, his legs stuck out. But he was a powerhouse in his community. And as a preacher who went from community to community, he saw things that he wanted his community to have. He talked about golf courses and tennis courts and indoor plumbing. And people came to him with their problems. And so I think it's in my DNA, because my grandpa would bring some stranger to my grandma and tell him, Maddie, call it Matsy, find him something, give him something to eat, find him a place to stay, put him to work. And so when my mother married and went from Texarkana, Arkansas to Marshall, Texas, Grandpa would send people up there to her and tell her to find some place for them, give them a place to stay till they could get on their feet. And so it's just part of my DNA. I don't know a family member of mine who wouldn't help a person who needs it. And as soon as they could. It's the way we are taught. We are a people who feel like it's our responsibility. And I keep preaching that every one of us should make ourselves a committee of one to teach people what needs to be taught for us to work together. And I'll continue to say, if you can be taught to hate, you can be taught to love. So, like I say, it's in my DNA.
It's in your DNA. Yes, it is. So Juneteenth, what I'm hearing, is just not about celebrating this one day, but it is about the growth and the continuation of people and their families. And you look at it bigger than...
It's broad. It's really broad. It is. And if we could get people to understand that, it's a bridge. It's a bridge that takes us over what has happened to us. And if they let go of the past, there's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do from now on to rectify what happened.
I love that. I love that. That Juneteenth is also an opportunity for us to look into the future.
Yes.
So what message should I take back to the Black faculty and staff? If you had a really strong message.
Tell them if I was close to it, I'd give every single one of them a hug. Because I know that they are going to impart to the youngsters at their school and in their community the value that Juneteenth brings to everybody. This is what we're trying to impart, that it's a unifier, that we've got so much we can do together.
And I just want to say thank you, Miss Lee. You have been a great influence on my life as a young woman growing up in this community. And I'm sure understanding that importance of Juneteenth has a lot to do with my even vigor for education and training of young people. So it has been a complete honor to sit here with you today and talk with you about a very special and historic time in our nation's
You
history.
let them know that I may pop up anytime.
Okay, I'll tell them that. And please know that you are always invited to the University of Alabama,
Thank you.
Tuscaloosa,
Thank you.
where we say roll tide.
All right.